Low expectations and plenty of patience. Those are not only the two major things that you need when traveling to Cuba nowadays, it should also be the travel tourism slogan for Cuba. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. This was the hardest travel review video I've ever had to do because I just recently spent an entire month in Cuba. I have had a love affair with Cuba my whole life. I've been there so many times I could be confused as Fidel's illegitimate child. It has changed. It has changed substantially. And if you're heading to Cuba in 2024, you really need to watch this video and pay attention. So guys, welcome to the truth about Cuba in 2024. Now, if you're like any normal person, which I'm not, believe me, not even close, you have probably been talking to friends and family, co-workers about your upcoming trip to Cuba. And most likely they have said to you at some point, man, it's beautiful there, blah, 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 but the food is horrific and you should take ketchup packets. Trust me. Go to McDonald's, go to wherever you need to get as many of these little babies as you possibly can and take them with you. Not only that, I would get a bunch of stuff like salad dressings, mustard, pepper, spices, you name it, sriracha sauce, sweet and sour sauce. Whatever you need to make the food in Cuba even edible to the point that you can stomach it for an entire week or however long your vacation is going to be. Hopefully you don't make the same mistake as I did and spend an entire month there because I lost 5 pounds. And when you're my size, 5 pounds is a lot to lose. Guys, I'm going to tell you something. The food in Cuba is some of the worst food I've ever had in my life. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Oh, what does this guy know? You know, he's probably got, a weak stomach. He's a picky eater. No, I actually have a stomach of steel and I have traveled all around the world eating some of the most disgusting things that you can possibly imagine. I've had buckets of bugs in Bangkok. We're getting ready to eat. Oh yes, hold on. We're gonna eat bugs. Yep. We are eating bugs. Well, at least she's eating bugs. Go ahead. So, I knew she was going to do that to me. Oh. Cockroaches in Cambodia. Guys, here we go. Bottoms up. Yes, I have suffered through some of the most horrifically disgusting meals you can possibly think of. Obviously for other people's entertainment, not my own, but I have ate, again, just the most disgusting things that you can possibly think of. And even I find the food in Cuba to be absolutely gross beyond belief. Not only that, there will be shortages of every single thing you can possibly think of. So yes, get yourself some ketchup packets, get yourself salad dressings, whatever it takes for you to get through that food for the week or however long you're going to be there, because the food truly is that bad. And I stayed at a 4.5-star resort, which quite honestly, anywhere in the world, that's a 2-star. The food was so bad. There were things at the buffet that were so gross, I had no idea what they were, and nobody there was eating it. It looked like... The smell was even worse. You cannot imagine just how disgusting the food is. Again, everything that people are telling you about how dreadful the food is, 100% true. And bless you if you are on a low sodium diet, because you should not be going to Cuba. The only spice it seems that they have to cook with is salt. So when you go for your eggs in the morning, let's say you're getting an omelet or something like that, you need to tell them no salt, because they will, it's not a dash or a sprinkle. They'll put a whole handful of salt in, and there's nothing worse than sitting there chewing your scrambled eggs or omelet and you think, oh, I broke a tooth. No, that's a great big chunk of salt, almost like rock salt. Like, you could actually take it back to Canada with you, sprinkle it on your driveway, and melt the snow and the ice. I'm telling you, every single thing tastes like salt. Even the cupcakes and the cookies and the little desserts all taste like salt. Oh, it's just terrible. And if you don't take stuff to help, you're going to suffer. You really are. The food is that bad. What I suggest is, again, get yourself some ketchup, mustard, all of this stuff. I would also bring little tiny juice packets that you can add flavoring to water and stuff, because the juices that they had at my resort, I don't know how they can call it juice. Literally, they had beet juice, and then they had carrot and sweet potato juice. They didn't have orange juice. They had something that looked like orange juice, but man, it tasted like dead grass that fermented in water for about 3 or 4 years. That's how bad it was. If you drink coffee, hey, you're in luck, because Cuba has some of the best coffee in the world. Sadly enough, I don't drink coffee, so, well, I was shit out of luck. I would also, and you're going to laugh at me when I tell you this, but I would pick up some of those, you know, those like instant noodle cups and stuff like that. I would get a bunch of those, rip them open, just bring the noodles in the packet, put it in a little bag, get rid of the bowl, because you can get a bowl or a cup down there really easy. I would bring those, and trust me, you will thank me. You will thank me 100%. That's how bad the food is. It is just disgusting. And there will be shortages every single day. One day they'll have ketchup, the next day they won't. One day they'll have mustard, the next day they won't. So you really need to package up a little travel bag of condiments, because you are going to need them to get through with the food, because the food is honestly that bad. And you really, again, if you're on a low sodium diet, or you just like food to taste like food instead of it tasting like salt, you've got to tell them, please, no salt, because they are just going to pepper, well, that's a funny way to put it. They're just going to coat it in salt, and it's going to be dreadful. And it doesn't matter if you leave the resort buffet and go to one of the a la carte places, because those are even worse than the buffet, because you don't have a lot of options there. Yes, it's an a la carte thing where you get to pick this, this, and this, but there's usually only 2 options, possibly 3. At least at the buffet, you can go and you can pick out. And yeah, the food is absolutely horrific. So every single thing you've been told about the food in Cuba, 100% true, if not understated. Which brings me to the next point, and that is another thing that you hear about Cuba all the time is, oh my God, it's so safe, the people are wonderful, it's just a beautiful place to go, you know, blah, blah, blah. It used to be, but it has changed, and really nobody is talking about this, but I do not sugarcoat anything. I give it to you exactly the way you need to hear it. And I'm going to tell you something. Cuba has changed, and it hasn't changed for the best. Ever since the pandemic, the situation, whatever, Cuba has gotten worse and worse and worse. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. Again, I've traveled all over, and I have heard more times in 1 month in Cuba than I have in the past 10 years. I could not believe how rude people were. They would come up to you, they would beg, they would bum, they would try to get you to do a currency exchange with them, which I will get to in a few minutes. And if you said no to them, it was, I couldn't believe how rude it was. And the worst part was, it didn't matter where you went. Veradero, Matanzas, Havana, every single place, everything has changed. Not only that, I will say this much. Again, I've been to Cuba so many times that I can almost be an honorary citizen there. And I made some terrible mistakes this time because I have this romantic belief in Cuba. I love it so much, and I always felt incredibly comfortable and safe there. And I will tell you this much, I've been told by my Cuban friends, and I do have people there that I see them at their house. We are actual friends. One guy is like a brother to me. He's that close to me. And even he told me, Mark, do not leave your resort at nighttime anymore and go into the little towns. Go to Veradero, but do not go to the little towns. It is no longer safe. And I'm the type of guy that I would like rent a bike and I would just blast off to these little towns. Sometimes I would spend the night there, get, a funky little room, go to the local bars, have all kinds of fun with the locals. And he told me point blank, do not do that this time because things have changed so much that you're most likely going to get robbed, get yourself into a really bad situation. And I'm not the type of guy that gets myself into bad situations anywhere. But I am told now, don't even think about it. Not only that, everybody now, it seems, there is all about the money. And they are trying everything they can to scam you, take advantage of you, rip you off. I'll give you a couple of really quick examples. I'm sitting down in Veradero having a couple of drinks at this little bar thing. The drinks were absolutely shitty, but you know what? It was cold and I wanted to catch a little buzz. So I'm sitting there and this girl comes along. She sits down with me and she goes, oh, hey, how's it going? Blah, 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 blah. It's me cleaning your room. And I'm looking at her and I'm thinking, you don't look like the girl that cleans my room. But anyways, there's so many cleaners who really pays attention. She goes, oh, it's my birthday, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. She goes, listen, could you, give me a few dollars for my birthday? And I'm thinking, man, this has never happened to me before, at least not in Cuba anyways. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Here's $5, okay? And she honestly looked at the $5 and she goes, do you have more? I'm like, wow. So anyways, about a week later, I'm sitting there with a buddy of mine and she comes up and does the exact same thing. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Wasn't it your birthday last week? Scams all the time. Also, when you go off the resort and you're buying any type of food or drink or anything like that, before you never had to ask the price because I'm just going to flat out say it. Again, nobody's talking about this, but I will. They're just not as honest as they used to be. They're trying to suck every dime they can out of you and they will rip you off like that. Prime example, again, me being me, loving Cuba, I made a horrific rookie mistake. I went to this little tiny place. They were making little chunks of fried chicken. And when I say chunks of fried chicken, it was more like a bone with a tiny bit of batter on top of it. Anyways, even worse than the food at the resort. I got with it a can of beer. Now, my beer should have been about $2. So between the beer and the chicken, my bill should have been $3. When I go to pay for it, he says $10. I'm like, 10? What? I said, how is that possible? $8 he charged me for the beer. Now, the beer should have been $2. And I know what you're thinking, oh, big deal, who cares? You need to care about this because they are taking advantage of people and charging them 4 to 5 times the amount if you don't ask for the price. And I will tell you this much, if you're in Cuba and a bartender or someone at one of these little food stands hands you a can of beer or a bottle of beer and they do not open it, don't take it because you are going to get like I did. His line back to me after I said, man, that's not fair. And you know what? He goes, you opened it. Fine, you got me. Sadly enough, still being in love with Cuba as much as I was up until 2 months ago, a couple days later, I made the same mistake at another spot. I stopped, I had a little tiny pork sandwich, which they had the price on the board. It was $1. They also had some beers on the board that were $2. However, I'll be honest with you, I was incredibly hungover and I did not want to have a beer. So I said, listen, do you have like orange juice? No. Do you have water? No. They got pineapple juice, so I thought, okay, I'll try pineapple juice. Oh, God. Ditch water would have been better. I get my bill. My pork sandwich was $1. My bill is $8 because they charged me $7 for a glass of pineapple juice. Everywhere I went, they tried to rip me off. Now, where I got the chicken and the beer and it cost me $10, $8 for the beer, I could have right at the stand beside it got a tower of Cristal beer. A full tower, which is about 3 or 4 beers for $6. Yet he charged me $8 for a can of beer that I should have been able to buy anywhere, like a convenience store or a stand, for about $1.50. Everywhere I went, people were trying to take advantage of you. Now, when I went to Cuba, one of my biggest ideas was to do this series, Cars, Cigars, and Cervezas. I wanted to do a lot of filming of the old cars because I'm a car guy and I love them. I thought it would be really, really interesting. Every time I talked to somebody about, listen, could I do a video about your car? Told them what I was doing, showed them my YouTube. They were like, yeah, $50. $50. It was always $50. And I thought, man, I can hire you to drive me anywhere for $10, but you want $50 just for me to take a video of your car? And I'm like, man, that's just, every place I went, it was just, they were trying to rip you off. Now, one thing you need to understand in Cuba right now is cash is king, okay? And please listen to me when I tell you this. Take a lot of money. Do not take just your debit card because most of the time your debit card is not going to work, okay? Not only that, you are going to get absolutely hammered on the exchange rate. So take yourself some cash and listen to me when I tell you this. When you arrive in Cuba, you will get off the plane and you will get onto a bus. That bus is going to take you to your resort. During the ride to the resort, the tour guide is going to talk to you about Cuba, blah, 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 and then they are going to start trying to scam you. So please listen to me when I tell you this one, okay? I'm going to do a video on it separate from this, but do not, under any circumstances, exchange money with the guy on the bus. Because what he's going to do is he's going to tell you this. Listen, the exchange rate at the bank or your hotel is 85 pesos to the Canadian dollar or 110 pesos to the American dollar. So what they will offer you is they'll give you 110 pesos for a Canadian dollar and 150 pesos for an American dollar, which sounds like a good deal to you. You're getting like an extra 20-25% on your money. Don't do it because they're ripping you off. If you go to the hotel, don't go to the lobby, go to one of the bartenders. And the bartender will give you, are you ready for this? 170 pesos for a Canadian dollar, 250 for a US dollar. So you're getting double what the exchange rate is. And I'm going to tell you something. Do not exchange money on the streets. Please watch my video about the currency cash crisis in Cuba where I go into more depth on that one. Just trust me, don't change your money on the bus because you're going to get ripped off. Do it at the resort, but not at the front desk. Go to one of the bartenders, exchange your money there. And whatever you do, do not use your credit card anywhere in Cuba because what they're going to do is they're going to almost charge you double what you can pay for with cash, okay? The best example of this I can give you is the Florida bar, the famous Hemingway bar in Havana. If you go in there and you buy a margarita, which that's what it's famous for, it's margaritas. That margarita costs you right around $2.50, okay? Canadian. However, if you use your credit card, they're charging you the posted bank rate. So you're paying about $5 for that margarita. So you're paying more than double for it. And they're doing this at every establishment where they use or they take credit cards. Even the hop on, hop off bus that goes around Veradero, the first week I was there, and again, I stayed for a whole month, they took a $5 Canadian bill as payment. Then all of a sudden, they decided that no, they're not going to take Canadian dollars. They're going to only take American or euros. And if you don't have American fives or euros, you had to use your credit card. And I'm like, no, I'm not using my credit card. Here's $5 Canadian, accept it or not. And they'll bitch at you, they'll complain, and they will eventually take it. But if you use your credit card, understand, they're going to charge you about $10 for that ride, okay? It is absolutely beyond belief. Everywhere you go, they're just trying to take advantage of you like you cannot imagine. So bring cash. Do not use your credit cards at all in Cuba. Trust me, you will regret it, because when you get home, you're going to be like, what the? Trust me, I've seen it. I've talked to a bunch of people that have experienced it, and it's not fun at all. Now, along with all of that, guys, I'm going to tell you, you need to bring low expectations and plenty of patience when you're dealing with the resort. Because I can tell you this much, at the resort that I was at, again, supposed to be a 4.5 star, I had to change my room 3 times in 1 month. The first 4 days I was in Cuba in that sweltering heat, I had no air conditioning. And I went up and I complained several different times to the front desk, and eventually I had to get off and raise my voice because nobody was helping. One thing you need to understand about Cuba is, again, low expectations and plenty of patience, because they will sit there at the front desk and they'll ignore you. They'll look at each other. They'll kiss each other on the cheek. They'll stand there. They'll go back and forth with each other. They'll ignore you to the point that you'll finally be like, excuse me. And I will say this much, I'm your typical Canadian traveler. I'm very polite, very courteous. Even I got pissed off with the service. The service now, ever since the pandemic, has just, it's fallen off beyond belief. It's not like it used to be. Even the restaurants that you go into at the resort, there were many meals that I sat there and I did not get even a glass of water. You're standing at the bar, and unless you're tipping the bartenders a lot, they'll just ignore you, and they'll wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and you'll be like the last person served. Not only that, the resorts are not safe like they used to be. You're not going to get murdered or raped or anything like that, but they're not as safe as they used to be. And this trip alone, I lost an extremely expensive pair of Huawei Gentle Monster smart glasses. What happened was I took my glasses off, set them down on my table, went up to the buffet, came back, they're just gone. I'm not going to blame it on the staff. It could have been one of the guests that saw them and thought, oh, those are nice, and just walked away with them. I know this much. Again, low expectations when it comes to the resort. One problem that I had, and everybody had at this resort, our doors didn't lock. Our cards did not work 99% of the time. So a lot of the time people would have to go up to the front desk, get a new card, etc., when it didn't really matter because none of the doors locked. I'm dead serious when I tell you this. None of the doors locked. In all 3 places that I was in, not a single door locked. In my best friend's cabin, his door didn't lock. All of the people we talked to, their doors did not lock. And I'm sitting there and I've got all of my camera equipment, I've got everything in there, and I'm at this point, sticking it underneath the beds and stuff because I'm actually worried about it. And the reason I'm worried about it is because I do cost of living videos throughout the world. I make sure I know exactly what I'm spending, etc. And one day, I had stayed at the resort the entire time. I was at the pool, you know, blah, blah. The next day, I'm like $60 short in my money, which was in the safe, okay? I was putting my money, my passport, my wallet, and a couple of other things like my watches in the safe. I'm $60 short. I'm thinking, I can't go up and say anything to them at the front desk because my door doesn't lock, and they're not going to give a shit anyways. Then one of my watches is gone, and at this point, I'm pretty upset. So I set cameras up in my room so that I could record anything, and I told them right at the front desk, I have set cameras up in my room, so I've never had a problem after that. All I know is this, guys, Cuba has changed, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, you know what, we got to go there, we got to have to help them, we got to support them, we have to be understanding, blah, blah, blah. Help yourself and be aware of what's going on so that you do not get taken advantage of. Again, if you're going to go to Cuba, it is a fantastic place, but please be aware of your surroundings, where you're going, who you're with. Do not leave stuff on your table at the buffet and walk up there unless you have a friend there that can watch it, because I promise you it's just going to walk away. When you're out on the town, if you're going to buy something, ask the price, because if not, they're going to rip you off like that, okay? Do not use your credit card anywhere, because again, when you get home, you are going to get a bill that is substantially more than you ever possibly thought it would be. Other than that, guys, Cuba, again, it is a wonderful place, and you will find some of the most incredibly wonderful, warm, welcoming, friendly people, but you will also meet a lot of people who are absolute scumbags. And when I tell you this one, please believe it. When you are out in public, down in Veradero or in Havana, any place you go, if someone comes up to you and wants to do a currency exchange with you, just say, no, thank you, I don't have any money, and walk away. Because what's most likely going to happen is if you say no, they're going to get aggressive with you. Just walk away. Do not give them any money, because I promise you they're just going to, they're going to rip you off. Do not get yourself into any situations now in Cuba that before, again, like I said, Cuba was one of the safest places in the world. It's not like that anymore. And I want to make sure that you guys enjoy your Cuban vacation, and enable for you to do that, you have to understand that Cuba has changed, and it hasn't changed for the better. It really hasn't. It's gotten to the point that, quite honestly, I've been there over 10 times. I will never be back to Cuba. And basically every single person that I talked to at the resort had the same review. They all felt the same way, and everyone had been to Cuba multiple times. It's not like they got there for the first time and it was like, oh wow, this is like, no, they had experienced the Cuba before the pandemic. They knew what it was like, and they all agree it has changed, and it's not the same. So guys, listen, go to Cuba, see it for yourself, but just be prepared and understand that, again, low expectations and plenty of patience. That's the only way you're going to survive your trip. That and little packets of ketchup. Till next time, guys, please enjoy your travels, stay safe, and live your best life possible. If you're not living your best life, find out what you need to do today to get living it. Because again, you only have one, and anything less than the best. You know it. Till next time, cheers.